Hello and welcome to UC Today. I'm Tom Wright and I'm delighted to be joined by Christopher from VOSS. Thanks for being with us today, Christopher. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and we've got a great sort of set of questions and topics today. We're going to be looking at digital workplace maturity and particularly around how organisations can get a bit more out of their UC stack and help keep that stack evolving. So I think a nice place to start would be if you could talk through some of the main challenges businesses are finding when they're managing and optimising their UC stack and how they're kind of prioritising, I suppose, some competing needs maybe across departments.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And I think it really depends on whether or not we're talking about enterprise customers or service provider customers. And at VOSS, we deal with both of those quite extensively. There are similar competing challenges, right? If we look at every organization is trying to balance limited resources and kind of unlimited need, right? We always feel like we could be doing something better. Budgets are a challenge, timelines are a challenge, people resources, training resources are a challenge. But also, as we, kind of move past COVID, there's a lot of dealing with the issues that maybe we didn't deal with then, right? There was a rush for remote work. There were huge investments in the technologies for remote work. And at the time, the pain was so acute, right? Everyone couldn't come to the office. Everyone still needed to work. The critical thing was getting a solution in place. And oftentimes, all of the needs weren't accounted for, or autonomy was given to departments to make decisions on their own, right, as opposed to finding a suitable corporate enterprise-wide solution. So a lot of the challenges now come from how do we manage what we built during that time, right? If we let that autonomy kind of run wild, how do we put unified management over what we call unified communications? But when you look, there's a pocket of Cisco here, and we've got a bunch of Microsoft users over here, and we've got hardware devices from a half a dozen vendors in this conference room, and we've got these conference rooms over here that have a totally different set of vendors. Managing all of that complexity, calling it unified communications, is aspirational, right, for a lot of organizations. So we see organizations, large and small, trying to deal with kind of how do we look at that versus a return to work policy that we put in place. Those are a lot of the challenges that we see. We also see that there's an understanding that automation can make things better, right? Some level of self-service. Do we really need to answer the phone every time someone needs to add an additional line? Or is there a way that we can deliver a portal experience so that users can help themselves? Right? There's a desire for that, but there's not really an understanding all the time about where do you start, right? Where's the best place? If we look at our entire estate, where's the best place for us to start?
And that leads quite nicely into my next question, actually, because I guess a big part of working out what's working and what isn't is how you measure what's working and what isn't. So, how can organisations go about, I suppose, establishing the effectiveness and security of their UC stack?
Yeah, how do they and how could they are two different pieces, right? How do they? In many cases, the answer is they don't. We'll talk to organizations and they have very little visibility into huge critical elements of their UC stack, right? They've got, maybe they have an understanding about call quality, but they don't really have an understanding about the underlying network resilience. Maybe they understand their usage, their consumption of meeting time or meeting rooms, but they don't really understand whether or not that room is booked and 80% of the participants are remote and only 20% of the people are actually in the room. There are huge implications there when you look at the amount, pardon me, the amount that you're spending on floor space, right, for employees. There are huge implications about what you're spending to heat and cool, the carbon footprint of what you're doing in those conference rooms. So there are huge pieces of the puzzle that we see them not really having any view into. And from our perspective, the tools like our Insights product, that's one of the critical elements, right? To really be able to start to dig down and tie the story together in a multi-vendor, globally dispersed environment, like a true global enterprise. It's hard to get all of those pieces together, but using tooling can certainly make that easier.
And I guess a lot of that is around employee habits or user habits. So, are there any kind of strategies you'd recommend that businesses can employ to kind of drive cultural adoption of what they've bought and ultimately maximize the ROI?
Yeah, I think that if we're being honest as an industry, there are two pieces to that digital maturity puzzle. There's the technology that enables that change, that evolution, that maturity to happen. But then there's like the will and the energy and the culture of the people involved to actually go and do that thing. It's frustrating. If I look back over the last, say, 30 to 60 days, I've had a handful of meetings with service provider partners, large global enterprise customers, where you have a collection of smart people in the room on the call, and we talk about what the future should look like for that organization. And there's unanimous agreement about where things should go. And culturally, the people on the call do not have the energy to go and fight that fight. We know our business would be better if we did A, B, and C. We know that. But we also know that it's going to take months to get procurement on board, and even though we have the budget, trying to get through the approvals process, trying to get that deployed in a service provider model, trying to get that element added to the product offer in market, that's frustrating, right? It really is, because it's indicative of a cultural challenge in the organization. And that's where, just as much as I believe that an investment in technology is important, an investment in driving a culture that is focused on um, iterative improvement, like constantly pushing what can we deliver better to our customers. I've been fortunate that I had two managers slash mentors in my career that approached this problem specifically. I had one manager and mentor and friend to this day, hello Pat if you're watching, who used to have something he called a GOAT meeting. And everyone knew that GOAT stood for Get Our Act Together. So it would be a GOAT meeting on a specific topic, and the goal was bring together all of the key stakeholders and let's really try to get together on what it is we're trying to do here. And the outputs were identification of blockers, right? What are the blockers that are preventing us from getting to that thing? I had another manager years ago named Rick, hi Rick, who called it a better way meeting, right? So we're going to have a better way meeting on our customer success management. All of the key stakeholders would come in, and the kind of setting of the table was we all agree that this is not performing the way that it should. What's the better way that we could be doing this? And we would just go around the room, and everyone knew that that was kind of a safe meeting to bring up those kind of touchy subjects that maybe the company didn't want to immediately address. But everyone was empowered to bring their ideas forward for meaningful debate. I think that a lot of organizations, if they're looking at this as a 90% technology problem and a 10% culture and energy problem, I think it's probably more 60-40, right? The tools and the technology are critical. I would not be at VOSS if I did not believe that to be true. But hand in hand with that is you have to have the energy to go and fight the fight to make it better within your organization.
Yeah, and I think leading on from that, you've explained really well kind of the cultural challenges, and you need the technology to be there, I guess, to kind of power the culture, if you like. And I'd just be interested to get your thoughts on how organisations can make sure all that technology plays nicely with each other, not just the UC technology, but the wider enterprise IT stack, and also with a thought on security and compliance as well, because there's a lot to think about here, isn't there?
Yeah, and my background is in enterprise IT. That's how I came up, as a technical person. We were chatting before the call, and visibility and control are two critical elements there. I think the automation piece plays an important role, obviously, but if you're operating an environment where you have multiple systems from multiple vendors and you have multiple levels of access that you want to control within that environment, it's very, very, very difficult to tie that story together using the native tools that are provided to you by the vendor, because the native tools are meant to work well within that environment. Microsoft tools work pretty well for managing your Microsoft environment. Microsoft dashboards work pretty well at showing you what's going on inside your Microsoft environment. And the same can be said for Cisco tools. The same can be said for Zoom tools. The problem comes when your environment needs more, needs a unified view. Let's say you're in a multi-vendor environment. All of your European office locations are living on some flavor of Cisco, and they've got contract expirations that aren't going to happen for a couple of years. In the US, you've got a pocket of Teams, and you've got some areas that are leveraging Zoom. Now you've actually added an additional job within your IT department of someone trying to piece together disparate dashboards. How is our call quality doing? Well, what are you really referring to when you're talking about call quality? Our Teams call quality? The VOSS tool set allows you to bring all of that together into one location. So first of all, from a visibility standpoint, we can kind of solve that multi-vendor disparate dashboards and give you the single pane of glass. From a role and responsibility standpoint, there are two sides to that. There's everyone needs to be enabled and empowered to do their job quickly and effectively without waiting for 12 levels of approval to do it. But at the same time, you don't want to give access to your entire UC environment to the person who's responsible for telephone numbers in EMEA, right? You've got a global environment. You've got DIDs coming from all over the world. You don't want to just say, okay, everyone, here's the bucket of DIDs, take the ones that you need, and everything will work out fine, because it very definitely will not. Having tight role-based access control that can give you a granular level of access, because then you give access to the EMEA DID person and you partition that off so they can't touch any DIDs from any other region. So from my perspective, it's about having a unified view, visibility into the environment, and also tightly coupled role-based access that's auditable. How do you know what went on within those systems without having those two pieces? It's very, very, very challenging.
So we've covered quite a lot today, Christopher. I'd like to finish by looking forward for the last couple of questions, if that's okay. First of all,
Yeah,
I'd like to ask
absolutely.
you what you think organisations should be prioritising when it comes to enhancing the maturity and effectiveness of their UC stack.
So I think automation is a critical piece. And really, if you're watching this video, automation in a 2024 sense of the word, not automation in a 2007, 2008 sense of the word. Oftentimes we'll talk to a customer, ask them if what they're doing for automation, and they'll say that they have automation in place. But what they really mean when they say automation is an email or an alert gets generated automatically that inspires someone to act. That's not really 2024 automation. If the system is smart enough to articulate the problem in a ticket to a person, the system is smart enough to automate the work within that ticket in 2024. And that's really where I think they should look to expand their automation footprint. How do we bring more things into that automation umbrella? I think that that's a critical piece. And then also expanding what they're able to see within their network and tying that story together. So many organizations have great observability about things like call quality. The underlying network piece, I think they struggle with that, tying that to licensing decisions. Like there's a lot that goes into a UC stack. Expanding your view and bringing all of that together in a meaningful way, I think that will be critically important.
Great. And my final question for you, Christopher, I wonder if you could give us any clues about what we can expect to see from VOSS over the rest of 2024.
Yeah, you know, I think what we were just talking about, full stack observability. You know, if you go and you take a look at what VOSS is doing there, I know that we have some content on the website, but what will be coming there and really opening up the ability to see up and down the stack in a very unique way, right? Without having to dashboard jump or jump from report to try to figure out what the story is, tying that full stack observability together in a way that's easy to consume. You're going to see a lot from VOSS in the coming months about that. And then without tipping our hand too much, I'll say that there are a number of Microsoft products that face the same challenges that Teams does. Teams, there are so many elements of it that really being able to control the support and the deployment of it becomes challenging with the out-of-the-box tools from Microsoft. I think what you'll see from VOSS is continuing expansion of the Microsoft products that we can manage and monitor effectively for our customers. You'll see more from us in 2024 on that.
Okay, well, that sounds interesting, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye out for any announcements. But in the meantime, Christopher, thanks for speaking to us. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Tom, I really appreciate the time. I hope you have a great day.
And thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a quick like and a share on social media, and we'll see you next time.